Good morning, everyone. We're about to embark on the mitzvah of the day, the mitzvah of the blowing of the shofar. And though lofty thoughts will probably be coming into your minds, every time I hear that first blast, I can't get out of my mind a ritual meeting that I had when I was a rabbi in Halifax. We were sitting around the table and thinking of days in which we're going to close the doors to non-Jewish visitors from the outside. And right in the top of the list, the president wanted to put Rosh Hashanah. When I thought that it was because of lack of space, since the shul is very filled, he said, no, it's embarrassing. I said, what's embarrassing? He said, everybody's tense and excited. Over what? Over the most primitive sound of a ram's horn that anyone, including kids that practice a bit, can make. The tkiya, the shvarim, the trua, the shvarim trua, these are not musical concertas that we should be proud of. And more importantly, we shouldn't be proud of the fact that these very primitive sounds are the ones that we get excited about. And indeed, it begs the question, what is it about the shofar that we get so excited about? It can't be its music. So what is it? What is the shofar there for? I wasn't on the editorial board of the Torah, so I really don't know why God commanded us on this day of Rosh Hashanah to sound the shofar. And indeed, the Rambam, echoing the words I just said, says exactly the same thing. But unlike myself, he adds the following. Remez yeshbo, says the Rambam in his laws of tshuva. There's a hint that perhaps we can derive from the shofar. And that is, Uru yeshenim meshenatchem. Those that are sleeping, wake up. And he goes on to say that once you wake up, you will, God willing, be able to repent and return to your Creator. According to the Rambam, the shofar is not there as a musical instrument. It's there as an alarm clock. It's there to wake us up. Now, what does an alarm clock do? An alarm clock simply goes ahead and tells you to make a small little change. If you're sleeping, it tells you to wake up. If you're in your office and your alarm on your phone goes off, it means to move on to another meeting, or to perhaps get into your car and drive to your next errand. It does not and cannot be a small little sound that will tell you, oh, wow, I just heard the sound, I'm now a different person. The 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, with all the respect we give to it, cannot totally change and revolutionize who we are. But it can tell us to move just a bit, to make one small little change. And if you want me to illustrate what I mean, allow me to suggest a book that I believe should be required reading before Rosh Hashanah. The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. As far as I know, he wasn't Jewish. I don't even think he ever heard the shofar. But he makes exactly the point of the Rambam, taking all the successes financially of the 90s and explaining it as one little change that the organizers made before it went public. For example, Sesame Street. It started in 1969 and it's going strong even in 2016. When they all came together, the psychologists and the psychiatrists that know children, they decided that it would be a mistake to mix up the Muppets with human beings, the imaginary world with the real world. And right before they went on the air in 69, they made that one little change. They mixed them up so that Cookie Monster and Oscar the Grouch were having live conversations with the realistic characters of Gordon and Susan and all those people that we grew up with. That one little change, says Malcolm Gladwell, made it such a success story. Just imagine if every single Jew hears the shofar as an alarm clock and says to themselves, you know, from now on I'm going to smile at my neighbor across the road when I see them in the morning and say good morning. That's it. Or perhaps people will come and say, you know, the next time I take a beverage into my hands, I'll make one bracha beforehand. Imagine how the world would look if people every Rosh Hashanah would hear that sound of the shofar and see it as an alarm clock as an alarm clock that ultimately tells them to make one little tiny move, one little turn, one little change. If that would happen, just imagine how the world would look like if every Jew that heard the shofar in shul would leave the shul with not a major resolution, but a small one, to make one little change. And imagine how we would look like if we went through so many Rosh Hashanahs and after 120 years come before God's holy throne, when in each and every one of them we made one little tiny change for the better. None of us are perfect, and none of us can honestly say that we can't do a bit better. And that's exactly what the shofar is there for. As the Rambam says so beautifully, every single Jew should see the entire world as if it's exactly equal on the scale. Chetzio chayav, says the Rambam, v'chetzio zakai. Half of it are full of mitzvot, half of it are full of sin. And God's about to destroy the world or save it. And it's up to you to make one little change, do one little mitzvah more, and you tip the scale in the right direction. That's the charge to us when we hear the shofar. It's not its music. It's its function as an alarm clock for us to wake up and just to move a bit in the right direction. A little move, a slight little tangent that will hopefully make our lives and the lives of people around us a bit better. And if we do so, then hopefully the words we say at the end of the service will come true. We're going to end the service today with the words, V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, may it be good in your eyes, God, to bless the Jewish people. B'chol eit, at every moment, u'v'chol sha'ah, at every movement, at every little turn that they make. Because Jewish people resolve on Rosh Hashanah to make one little tiny turn. Hopefully God will indeed bless upon all of us a beautiful, wonderful year, because each and every Jew that heard the shofar was able to make one slight little change in their lives.